The most expensive company blunders in history. Every day, you make hundreds of decisions as part of running a business. No matter how astute you are, a number of your decisions and actions are bound to be wrong. Some blunders, though, are more serious than others. In today's video, we highlight mistakes that have gone down in history as the most devastating lapses in business judgment of all time. Remember to go clickety-clack on the like button and do a tap dance on the notification bell so you get to know immediately when we release videos on the channel. These incidents were significantly more expensive than at first appearance and were not handled with a simple apology. The error cost millions or even billions of dollars in lost income and provided competitors with the opportunity to gain an advantage. We've ranked these stories in order of gravity from the least to most brutal. Here are the worst of the worst. JCPenney eliminating sales. JCPenney was battling to stay afloat by New Year's Eve of 2012. As the department store struggled to differentiate itself from competitors, CEO Ron Johnson decided to try something new. He chose to abolish sales and false prices. Instead, they would make everyday pricing reflect what once were sales prices. And they would not price things ending in 9, for example, $7.99, but instead would just use full numbers. Customers may have liked to believe that they were getting a good deal because JCPenney's income dropped 25% that year, and over 20,000 employees were laid off. Read Understanding the Facts About Discounts and Client Spending. $3,900 flights for $39. Price inconsistencies have plagued the internet since its inception. Between Walmart's price error earlier this week and the United ticket mishap last year, Alita Airlines' error in 2006 appears to be the most expensive yet. The Italian airline mislabeled a business class journey from Toronto to Cyprus as $39 rather than $3,900, and 2,000 seats were sold at this price. While attempting to cancel their orders, Alita eventually agreed to honor the tickets, resulting in a $7.72 million loss. Atari. The forerunner of the home video game consoles failed due to a sequence of missteps caused by their overconfidence in being pioneers and dominating players in the family entertainment sector. Those who led in the 1980s filed bankruptcy in 2013 after leaving an impact on the childhood and youth of multiple generations. One of the most severe blunders made by this company titan was the pursuit of technological innovation in their teams. The technical flaws in the console that were released to the market was something that the taxpayers did not forgive, but that their competitors knew how to exploit because the technological failures did not pose a significant challenge to their more direct competitors like Nintendo and Sony. Finally, the most disastrous blunder, which may have cost this company the most, was the release of the game E.T. Extraterrestrial based on Steven Spielberg's blockbuster 1980s picture. The game was a flop, and Atari fans despised it, badly developed and completely detached from the plot of the film, and it did nothing but cost the firm money. Now, Atari, which has spent several years working hand-in-hand with various owners, is dedicated to the development of casino games and the sale of advertising materials to capitalize on the brand. M&M's missed a galactic opportunity. The popular Reese's Pieces candy might not exist today if it weren't for E.T. You may recall a memorable scene in Spielberg's masterwork about a boy and extraterrestrial in which Elliot pulls the alien out of hiding with a trail of candy. The Reese's Pieces trail was supposed to be M&M's, but when Amblin Productions approached Mars about utilizing their colorful chocolates, they declined. Reese's Pieces saw a 65% increase in sales after appearing in the film, making it one of the most successful product placements of all time. Borders passing the torch until it went up in flames. When the publishing sector changed and book sales began to decline, everyone knew there would be winners and losers. But why did Barnes & Noble's defeat Borders bookstores? Borders' board of directors hired 4 new CEOs in 5 years and did not give them the ability to make significant changes. Borders wasted important time and energy attempting to find a flawless CEO who didn't exist as the world of books transformed. Borders Books went out of business in 2011, and Barnes & Noble's purchased all of its trademarks and client information. Hint: learn how to develop leadership in your workforce. The record company that refused the Beatles. On New Year's Day 1961, a little-known rock band with a bug-themed moniker presented a shaky performance at Decca Records. The Beatles were desperate for a record deal, and while they were nervous during their audition, they were optimistic about their possibilities. Mike Smith, Decca's A&R representative, decided to sign another band because he believed, quote, guitar groups were on their way out. Little did he realize that the Beatles would go on to become the best-selling band in the world, forever changing music and culture. Who hasn't heard of Decca Records? New Coke achieving new lows. During the 1970s, one of the first challenges, as they're now known in social networks, was an advertising campaign known as the Pepsi Challenge, in which this firm presented 2 drinks to a randomly selected public and asked which drink they preferred. The findings were disastrous for Coca-Cola, which felt its hegemony in the soft drink market was endangered, leading to a dangerous and reckless choice. To combat the threat, the company's top executives decided to modify the flavor of Coca-Cola. The consequence was disastrous, since the new Coca-Cola debuted in 1995, displacing the original flavor from the global market. The experiment was a huge flop, and the regular purchasers of the red and white brand chose to switch to a different beverage. Given the devastating financial results, a few months after, the original Coca-Cola reappeared under the name Coca-Cola Classic, recapturing an audience thirsty for the original flavor and teaching managers to never make decisions without a supremely judicious, detailed, and studied market analysis. ABC turning down the cause. Bill Cosby approached ABC back in 1984 about purchasing his show about an affluent black family, but they declined. According to some sources, ABC was confirmed that an unrealistic image of an elegant and well-educated black household would be difficult for many American viewers to believe. Although ABC contests this claim, the fact remains that after Bill Cosby sold his program to NBC, it became the network's #1 show for 4 years in a row and the most profitable series on television. Big networks who fumbled Monday Night Football. Baseball remained America's favorite sport at the end of the 1990s, but football was gaining popularity. Pete Rozelle, the NFL commissioner, understood that the merger of the NFL and AFL would boost the sport's appeal, so he approached both CBS and NBC about airing the Monday night primetime game. But both networks were concerned about shifting their famous Monday night shows, so Rozelle accepted the offer from ABC instead. Monday Night Football went on to become one of the most popular and longest-running television shows of all time. The awkward AOL-Time Warner merger. When AOL and Time Warner announced their merger in 2000, there was a lot of coverage and hype surrounding it. Many individuals thought that the merger represented an exciting future of collaboration between the internet and television, and both corporations were optimistic about the future. Unfortunately, when the firms split 9 years later, their combined value had dropped from $300 billion to $40 billion. Cultural disagreements, leadership differences, and the burst of the dot-com bubble all contributed to deflation. Tip: learn how to successfully integrate businesses and teams following a merger. Western Union. This company has over 150 years of history and is historically significant due to its involvement in popularizing the telegraph. Of course, there's no one to blame for this massive blunder. In 1976, they were visited by a young dreamer named Alexander Graham Bell, who offered the patent for a system that allowed them to transfer speech through electrical undulations that went through wires, commonly known as the telephone. This technology was supposed to change the way that people communicated. The managers and owners of the American company, on the other hand, laughed, not only because of the cost, but also because of the invention, which they described as a toy that could never replace the telegraph as a medium of communication. The next year, one of the most important companies in American history, Bell Telephone Company, was founded. It went on to become the American Telephone and Telegraph Company, better known today as AT&T, biting off a large piece of the Western Union hegemony that permanently retired from communications in 2006. Ford's inability to let go. Like many investors, Henry Ford made mistakes during his career, such as the Edsel, a cumbersome automobile that was only in production for 2 years. But probably the most famous failure Ford committed was not acting at all. Members of his crew engaged the Ford to innovate its design a few years after the beloved Model T was produced in order to compete. While Ford was away, a member of his team created a new prototype with a low-slung frame, which infuriated Ford so much that he destroyed it with his bare hands. As competition increased, Ford was eventually dethroned as the American automaker and had spent decades struggling to get back into its place. Excite passing on Google for under $1 million. There are many coulda, shoulda, wouldas in business, but perhaps none as regretful as those that turned down Google. In the 1990s, the founders of Google, a tiny but growing search engine, approached the CEO of Excite, a much larger and much more popular search engine at the time. Larry Page and Sergey Brin sought Excite to buy Google for $1 million at first, and then dropped their offer to just $250,000. But they were still turned down. Excite's stock price plummeted as a result of this, and it was subsequently acquired by Ask Jeeves. Google is currently worth $340 billion and generates $60 billion of revenue per year. Tip: learn how to analyze the risks and benefits of difficult business decisions. Xerox letting Apple into their lair. In the 1970s, Xerox developed a number of game-changing computer technologies that were never fully commercialized, such as the Xerox Alto desktop computer and the Graphical User Interface, or GUI. The Graphical User Interface was the forerunner of the current computer systems because it allowed for users to interact with images and graphics on a computer rather than just text. Apple donated Xerox $1 million in stock in the 1980s in exchange for allowing many Apple personnel, including Steve Jobs, to visit their facility for 3 days. Apple went on to use what they learned at Xerox to create the modern personal computer, and the business is now worth $110 billion. In the late 1980s, Xerox sued Apple for utilizing their GUI technology, but the case was dropped. On the other hand though, their Apple shares grew to be worth billions of dollars, giving Xerox the happy ending that many other business fumblers throughout history have found elusive. If you watched until this point, you're the real MVP. Do well to leave a comment on which blunder you feel had the most impact. Remember to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. And until next time, thank you for your time and have a productive day ahead.